Bill Wilson, co-founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, wrote in 1952, "If we examine every disturbance we have, great or small, we will find at the root some unhealthy dependence and its consequent demand." Wilson suggested that if we could identify and continually surrender these unrealistic and unrealizable demands, that we may then be able to accomplish what he imagined to be the recovery's next frontier, something he called emotional sobriety. Flash forward 70 years and join psychotherapists and best-selling authors Tom Rutledge and Dr. Alan Berger, who have taken up the mantle of exploring Bill Wilson's new frontier. Welcome to Emotional Sobriety.
Welcome to Emotional Sobriety, the podcast. I believe, if I'm correct, our producer just told us that it's our 20th episode. So happy 20th, guys.
Fireworks go off. There's fireworks going off. The bugles are sounding.
That's right.
Everybody close your eyes and imagine that. This is like the 4th of July fireworks.
Dr. Berger begins with a visualization. I love it. It's great. It's great. All right. And so I'm right here with Patrick.
We're celebrating the fact that we've got along for 20 episodes. I mean, this is...
Listen, we got along for 20 episodes. We got along for 40 episodes.
Here's a good one. Has anybody taken anything personal in the last 20 episodes?
Among us?
Yeah. I'm sure. Somewhere.
Yeah. Constantly.
What do you mean? No.
I can't believe you're asking me that while we're recording. Oh my God.
Yeah, I took that personal.
Hey, listen, but we have done 20 of those, and you know, I forget to remind people that we have the other podcast that we did prior to this. And I think it's better than just a practice podcast. I think it's good. It's called Start Right Here, and that's still out there. And I still hear from people who listen to that. And then we have our. I think that, you know, wherever the COVID thing is, even though that was the initial reason for that, the 12 episode video that you and I did, Alan, for support during COVID, which was a brainstorm of yours. I know, I'm sure you can get it on your site. It's on my website. So there we have, you and I have some other things out there.
We have things out there, and it's so, you know, once again, I just keep coming back about, you know, the community that we've created here. Mm-hmm. And in our podcast, in our video filming before that, now with Patrick being our producer, and then on the Thursday night thing, it's been a very nourishing community for me. I'm very nourished by all the things we're doing.
No, I think that's something all three of us can agree on, that what we're doing with all of this is I mean, what a nice job to have, that you this is the work you do. This is your what you want to be working on. And it's just so self-fulfilling.
Yes. So true.
We had some wonderful guests on the earlier podcast, Start Right Here. And I'm excited because in the upcoming weeks, we're going to have on Joe C. from the Rebellion Dogs podcast. A little bit of crossover. Alan was on his show, and now he's going to be on Alan's and Tom's show.
All right.
And Joe C. is a real important person in the evolution of secular AA recovery. He is one of the founding members of that movement, and he wrote a book, Daily Reflections for Non-Believers. And
yes, I know that. Yeah, I know that book.
You probably know it under.
I do. Yes,
under his pseudonym, I think Rebellion Dog or something like that.
Yeah.
Joe C. But I'll tell you, I've just come to know Joe through this thing. And he's rock solid, man. He's really got, and he's going to come and share with us some of his thoughts about Sober Enough, which I think is such a great way of conceptualizing and thinking about not only recovery but our lives. So I'm looking forward to it, Patrick. Thank you for arranging that.
I'll have to pick up a copy of that book because definitely more on my wavelength, I think. The secular one.
A lot of people have struggled, with AA And even though, I mean, if you look at the original manuscript and how it was edited, I mean, they really tried to really bring down the quote religious feel of the book, right? Because they didn't want it to be aligned with with Catholicism or other forms of Christianity, and they tried to subtract from that book or edit from that book as much as they could. But still, for a lot of people that are agnostic and stuff, just God as I understand him is a hard concept. And I'll tell you, I'm sure this has happened for you, Tom. A lot of people, especially people in rehab that don't have a chance to talk with other folks in the recovery community, get so turned off at times if they're agnostic or atheist when they go to a couple meetings and there's heavy talk about God, because a lot of times God is mentioned without saying as you understand them. People in some meetings won't put that condition on it or qualification. So I'm grateful for those folks, because there's a whole movement now. Joe C. Roger up in Canada, many people, the folks, the free thinkers in AA in Arizona have got a strong fellowship. It's wonderful because, these are, as we're unpacking on Thursday night, the therapeutic value of the 12 steps is phenomenal.
Oh, absolutely. It's all, and I always say, the 12 steps don't have a corner on the market, because I think you could probably look at programs that are more often thought of as spiritual than anything else and find a similar thing. That basically what you also find that in common is that the people who've put this stuff together through the years and edited it and changed it through that are very, very psychologically minded.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
But I often, one of my favorite things has been to say for years is what do those people do who aren't alcoholics? How do they learn anything? Because I remember the first time in a meeting when I was very new in the program, I remember hearing somebody say, I'm grateful to be a recovering. I'm grateful to be an alcoholic. And I thought, well, because I'm always correcting people's language, I thought, well, he meant to say, I'm grateful for my recovery, so it was okay. I fixed it for him and to myself. But then I heard somebody else say that. And then, the short version is, and then one day, a couple of years later, I heard myself say it and understood it at that point, is I'm grateful for all of this shit. I'm grateful for my alcoholism, for my self-hatred. I'm grateful for my depression. It's like all of these things, I have learned to make my teachers. And it's like, I am grateful, because you can't compare it to a life not lived. A parallel universe, in some idealized thing where, the way I always think is probably maybe there's a life in which everything goes my way, but I get run over by a bus when I'm 18. It's like everything's just fine, but it's like I'll take this one. Yeah. So far I'm closing in on 68 years of this one, and that's a pretty good run.
Yeah. If the indicator light never came on, I would have known to look inside the engine, right?
God, mine was like a Christmas tree. Yeah. His engine shut down.
And exploded. Exploded.
What the fuck is wrong with you light was on. Pull over, you stupid shithead.
Eject. That's good, man. You guys, it's great. Well, look, I'm so excited about this episode because, we really dug into what happens. How is it, what happens that we take things personally? But the other side of this coin is, how do we deal with this now? What are some of the practical suggestions we have for people to, once you catch yourself taking it personally? Now, it's very important that you're able to identify this, right? Because you can't tame it until you name it. So we go back to what we're saying is that please, if you're not in a point where you're seeing this yet, try to step back and say, look, what is blocking me from seeing that I'm taking things personally? A good clue is, like we say, if Patrick, I love that. I hadn't heard you say that before. If the indicator light goes on, look under the hood. Look under the hood.
Your hood.
Your hood. You get upset. Open that hood and say, hey, where is the taking it personal connection here. Find out where that's wired to. What part of the engine is that wired to?
Mhm.
Because that becomes a very important thing. If I can identify what I'm experiencing and what's going on, now I have a chance now to apply some of the things we're going to talk about today, to
Right.
be able to unhook yourself and now realize that it's not what the other person's doing that's causing you trouble.
Mhm.
It's what
Right.
the meaning.
It's how you're responding to it.
How you respond to it based on the meaning you're giving to it. We
Mhm.
are meaning generators. We are constantly assigning meaning to our experience all the time, which is fantastic. I mean, that's how, we fulfill our life and, how we make sense of things. But when we assign meaning, and by that, I say, when we take something personally, when I assign that meaning to an experience I'm having, now I'm going to create some real trouble for myself and for that relationship.
Well, what just occurred to me too is that there's specific that we have specific ways of taking things personally, and then we have general ways of taking things personally. I've never thought about that until just now, so that's what my little brain is spitting out. It's and one of the one of the general ways is to turn things that are not intended as actually are not criticisms from other people into criticisms. So very, very often, I mean, an example that happens in therapy a lot is that if we're doing what we're doing today in today's episode, talking to somebody about something they can specifically do differently. If I suggest something, one of the reflex, and I mean, this applies to all of us. I mean, that'd be me too. But one of the reflex responses that I get on a regular basis is, well, but that's easier said than done. And of course, my main response to that is, duh. Learning how to actually do this stuff is sometimes very, very difficult. But in our day-to-day life, a lot of times, my wife, one example I have from my couples therapy days was my wife said, could you get the feed out of the truck and put it in the barn? And my immediate response was, I do a lot of things for you at the barn, and it's
I've done that one before.
Yeah, I tell you what, it's a male thing. Don't just pat us on the head, but if we've done something good, tell us about it, because it does matter. It matters that we get acknowledged if it happens. But the main thing is it's on us. It's like the idea somebody asking for something is not a criticism that I'm not giving enough or doing enough. It's a dangerous neighborhood in there. Don't go in there by yourself. I mean, get somebody to go with you and explore what you might be interpreting.
Well, it is so relevant to this discussion, and even apropos to my life. I was warming up for this program this morning. I decided to take something personal from Jess. I thought, let me practice some of these principles. I really didn't take it personal, but I thought, let me just try to take this personal and see what I can do. No, I really took it personal.
Yeah. So, you're like Pee Wee Herman. I fell off the bike on purpose.
That's right. Yeah. A lot of Pee Wee Herman tricks in my life. I love him. It was a lot of fun. And then he got caught masturbating at
I know.
And then I liked him even more.
That's our deranged producer just spoke up there.
That's right.
He was human, right? It makes him human. I mean, that's
right.
The problem I have with this cancel culture today is that we're canceling everybody out because they're human beings. So I'm going like, what's going to be left?
Yeah.
We're all going to need to be canceled then. Oh my God. So maybe we just all get canceled so we can all start over. Is that the idea? I don't know. It's a crazy world we live in. But anyway, so I'm sitting there and I said, listen, let me, we're trying to organize today and stuff like that. Everybody knows I've got a 3-year-old and an 8-year-old at home. And so part of the Sunday and Saturdays are, because they're not in school, it's like, all right, so how are we going to organize our lives with them today?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, look, just a heads up, we're going to start our podcast at 11 this morning. And then I'm speaking at a meeting, so I'll probably be freed up around 1:15 or so. And then she makes this look on her face like she's upset about it. It's kind of a grimace, or that's the best thing I could describe it as. And I immediately felt criticized. like, my God, you're criticizing and I'm doing these things and, these are important and stuff like that. And so I get my, my feathers ruffled.
Mhm.
And so I start coming, well, look, this is kind of a double standard as I support your career. And here you are criticizing me that I'm working and stuff. And then she stopped me dead in my tracks. She goes,
Mhm.
I'm disappointed because I'm going to miss being with you the whole day. Of course, I hear it as a criticism. I don't see.
Oh, you are. Well, it's a great example of how we can go that far so bad. It's facial muscles that are moving, and you're going like, and you get to a general. We have a double standard here. It's like,
I know. It's like,
no, at most we have a facial tick. It's like,
and she has the tick. I know. No, it's like, and I'm taking her tick personally. It's like, that's a meaning. Look at all the meaning I assign.
And we do it
my
that
low
fast.
Self-esteem.
Oh,
of course she can't miss me. Of course, what it is, I'm doing something wrong. I'm not even. So I remember now. This memory came to me. I would be outside. We had a 3-floor house in Chicago, and I was cleaning the windows. My job would be to be outside cleaning it. And my mom would sit inside and she would tap on the window every place that I
oh, wow. Perfect.
I mean, and then now if I say this, I can connect it to Jess is tapping down the window. Oh, you're not over here. You're not doing this right. You're not doing that right. You
missed the spot.
You missed the spot. And that's not what she's saying at all. She's saying, I miss you. I enjoy being with you. The family enjoys being with you. And here's the message that it takes me a while to get to.
Mm-hmm.
You're important.
Yeah.
Like to spend time with you today.
Right.
Self-esteem doesn't hear that, right? My self-esteem, my little boy that didn't get mom's approval here.
The window washer. Yeah.
The window washing experience. You're not doing it right. You are not doing it right. If you did it right, there would be no reaction to you. And my God. So then I start fucking reacting to that. And then I finally catch myself and say, my God, you just took that personally. It had nothing to do. She says, it's not a matter of respect for you at all or criticism. I just miss you.
We learn a lot from how we mess things up, and we have plenty, but we also need to be sure as we do better, we need to learn from how we do things right and be sure and notice when we get it right. And this is a great experience to as an example of measure your progress in response time. How long might that kind of exchange go on in any one of our relationships? That could ruin at least a good
that
week.
would be a good 6 months, man. I'll tell you, I could cop resentment on that one.
Yeah, I mean
6 months.
We could go on, and it's like the idea.
Call, hey Tom, can I tell you what a bitch my wife was today? And now because of this stuff, Tom says, well, Al, maybe she's a bitch, but let's look at your response. And
that's right. Yeah. But you and Jess, because you know each other, you get to know each other, so and that's part of the thing. You learn each other's stuff, so it's not the other person. I always tell couples that it's not my responsibility to monitor and keep up with what goes on, what Dee Dee's stuff is, or her with mine. But the truth is, as partners, we will notice. Sometimes we'll catch it first. Sometimes they will. But she caught it first. But the other thing that's totally different about you than used to be, I'm sure, is when she stopped you dead in your tracks and you listened and you got it.
Yeah.
You immediately corrected course.
I took, and that's what, then I worked step 10, right? Made amends for that. I took that personally. I can see
well, not only do you need, you work step 10 and then you let her know how much you love her and appreciate the fact that she actually misses you when you're not there.
Right. Yeah.
I love that story. And it's like, like
I said, it was a good warm up for the show today. I thought, hey, I got to share this with Tom and Patrick and our audience, because this is the stuff, I get people all the time and say, how long did it take you to not take things personally? I go, I'll tell you when I get there. I'm not there yet. But what I can tell you is what Tom just said. Please measure your progress on this, on not that you stop taking things personally. but how you deal with that. So that's the how we are getting into today.
Right. Well, that goes to the first voice, second voice thing that we, I wrote that little thing I call the world's shortest self-help book, that one little blip that basically is, we're not going to get, again, we want to remind people, we're not going to get rid of that reflex that, if you do, then good for you, but we're not going to get rid of anything inside because we're trying to get rid of it. It's like, it's giving yourself that extra beat, that you didn't do in this example, but that Jess gave you the opportunity to do in that situation. Probably as many times or more times nowadays, probably you do that independently. That you basically catch yourself. Wait a minute, what's the deal? Like we're doing what we're teaching people here. Check the light. What it is, and we make a correction. Reasonable doubt, like we talk about often, which is, well, maybe they don't. First of all, let's start from, if we're going to make an assumption, let's assume it's possible that they do not mean anything personally by that. This is a process thing. This is what we don't get to a place that I know of where I never take something personally. I get to a place where I know what to do when I do take something personally. I know how to check it out. And I know what, among other things, like we're talking about with our relationships, what a time saver it is. Yeah. If I can actually just give myself a little bit of a pause to say, maybe not.
Yes.
For me, it comes back to that pause or that breath, or so much can happen in that moment, and you choose to put some space between the feeling or the thought and your reaction.
Yeah. You're right. I mean, that's such, it is, well, Viktor Frankl talked about that, right? Say what, you know him better than I do. Talk about what Viktor Frankl said.
He says there's a space between the stimulus and our reaction.
Yeah.
Our response to it. He says, try to live in that space. In that space lies your power to choose. Yeah. He says, in your power to choose lies your freedom and your power and your freedom. He just says, lies your freedom. It's so empowering. He was so right on about that, is by getting into that space. And sometimes, we can get in there easier than other times. Sometimes, like, I was able to stop and use what Jess said as a hold it, stop sign, pause sign. Sometimes in my mind, I'll think of a pause button and I'll actually hit it, like the old cassette players and the CD players, and even now the Blu-ray players, and now on the streaming, there's still a pause button. You can still hit pause. So sometimes I'll use that imagery of a pause button. But Tom is bringing up another thing, and I just want to acknowledge, in the beginning of my new book, I acknowledge, Tom, the contribution you made to this, because this book was written during the time when we were doing all this stuff. And I said here, Tom and I have been meeting regularly since the coronavirus pandemic interrupted all of our lives. We provided support for those in recovery during the initial phases of the pandemic, and we continued carrying the message with our podcast, Start Right Here, Conversations About What Matters Most. Our new podcast on emotional sobriety will continue developing the concept of this critical component of recovery. I go, Tom's influence permeates my writing. Thank you, Tom, for your professional wisdom and personal support during these trying times. And specifically to the point is this idea of listening to your second voice that I talk about in here. Is that I've thought of that in other ways, but I love the way Tom put it. And so that's the first thing that I mention in terms of how to stop taking things personally. And Tom's talking about it right now, is that if we pause in it, like if I had a chance, to not listen to my low self-esteem voice that says, all right, you're being criticized again. Here it goes. More disapproval, that kind of thing. And then wait and say, is it the reasonable doubt part comes in.
The first voice is not always, but in the kind of stuff we're talking about is usually the one that after, what we're used to doing, if we go with our reflexes, is we go with the first voice. The first voice says she's telling you you're doing something wrong. And so we react to that. It's this part of the pause is realizing that we are multiple in nature, so that if you're my first voice and you tell me somebody is pissed off at me or upset with me or criticizing me, then I learn to say, okay, thank you for sharing. Who else has something? Reasonable doubt is a great voice to have, because he just sits there and he or she and just sits there and goes, maybe not. You know, that's one of the things I learned in writing about the fear book is we love certainty so much that we will basically go to idiotic lengths, you know, to convince ourselves that we are absolutely right about something, even something negative, because we're more comfortable with that than something that is uncertain.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, how many people do we know? How many times have we even ended relationships because we can't stand uncertainty? You know, it's like, let's just take it out back and shoot it because I can't handle not knowing. It's like, in any of us who are in long-term relationships that have survived, we know we would not be here today with these relationships had we not developed a tremendous tolerance for uncertainty.
Now, the other thing you said, and I've experienced this, you know, one way of preventing taking things personally is if somehow the moment somebody starts to say something to me and I find myself reacting, I shift to be an empathic rather than defensive.
Yes.
And if I can have empathy at that moment and do what Dr. Kempler, my mentor, said, he says, if you want to become more personal in your intimate relationship, and later on, he even extended it. He says, to any relationship, you've got to stop taking what the other person is doing personally. So what happens when I stop taking what they're doing personally, I can ask the question, what is this telling me about them? What am I learning about this other person? So if I don't filter them with, like in this case, I gave you guys example with Jess, with my low self-esteem. Well, what was I learning about Jess? Well, she was just expressing her disappointment in the way she expresses disappointment. You know, Jess is a bit of a fighter, so she'll, you know, get a little bit more aggressive rather than go to the softer part. Look, I just really miss you today. She can get there, but it'll take her a minute to get there, just like it takes me a minute to get there. That's why our relationship, we do a lot of grinding together because we both have that first reaction is to move against the other person. But that question that Walter put in my mind, which goes to what Tom is saying, that if we leave space for the reasonable doubt, if this is not about me, what is this telling me about them? If this might not be about me, then what might this be telling me about them? And then that becomes a hypothesis. Right? Hey, maybe this means that, like in this case, she's missing me, and that's her way of expressing this. Wow. Now, if I can remember that, that might help me not take it personally. Right. So one of the things that I love about doing, like, and I'm sure you do too, couples work, is that we don't really integrate what we're learning about our partner into our interaction with our partner. Is that so if I take all these things personally, I'm not seeing who they are. If I saw who they were, I could learn to be better coordinated with them. I would be able to be better coordinated with whatever she's doing and not take things personally. When I take things personally, I'm no longer well coordinated with my partner. And so I fall out of sync with them. I'm thinking they're out of sync. And this is the other part of this. A very important dynamic with this taking things personally is 99.9% of the time. Sometimes I'm suspicious that this might be 100% of the time. Whatever I'm accusing them of doing, I'm actually doing. You're not being sensitive to my needs. I'm not showing sensitivity to their needs. And boy, please hear this, is that whatever you're accusing that other person of doing that you're taking personally is what you're doing to them that you're not owning yet.
But add to this, do not, if you're like me, like to not turn, it is not going to, you can, I say do not, you can do it if you do it, but it's like, you learn from it, but it's like, but you're going to get nowhere if you just turn that on yourself in a condemnation. It's because what you're talking about, that awareness is when we shift to empathy, and see, I think that's one of the techniques in what we're saying. That's, if we were going to list out the technique, it would be like shift to empathy. To shift to empathy would be, I am now tuned in and trying to be of help to my partner. and instead of trying to get my point across, which that's a tough one for some of us, including myself in that deal, where I love what you're saying about what was the terms you used in terms of being in sync with your partner? It was
to be coordinated, right? Is to
coordinate. I love that. It's like, yeah, absolutely.
That's what I think about being in sync now, is more of a coordination. And I say in this chapter, I go, the act of not taking things personally is not a one and done event.
No, good. I love that.
We have moments when we achieve real emotional sobriety, and other moments where we slip and have to remind ourselves it's not all about me, because that's what's underneath this. It's not all about me. What the other person does, everything that they do is not about me. There may be a few things, but what they're doing is about them. That's them, not me. So I'm differentiated from them. I go, there's going to be moments when we slip to and have to remind ourselves it's not all about me. Emotional sobriety is a practice, a way of approaching ourselves and the people in our lives and the situations we encounter. Fortunately, not unfortunately, I said fortunately, we have many opportunities to practice it throughout the day.
Absolutely.
Right. We can think about our failed attempt and plan for the next opportunity, which may be only moments away. I mean, so don't get discouraged. You get to get up to bat again.
Yeah. And I would even go so far as to say, and we all, and since we do all get discouraged, when you're discouraged, please understand that that's part of the process. We all get discouraged. It's like, but you took me to, I think it's Batman Begins with Christian Bale as Batman, where his childhood memory of when he falls into the hole in the ground that's going to become the Batcave, and his father comes to get him, and he asks the question, "Why do we fall down?" And
we can learn to pick ourselves up.
We can learn to pick ourselves up. It's like, yeah, fall down, get up, fall down, get up. When I tell people, in terms of emotional stuff, we'll fall down and we'll just stay down. It's like, if you fall down, just think of it physically. If you're walking down the street and you fall down, you don't sit there and say, well, it's Thursday, I'll get up on Monday. You don't, I'll get up in the morning. It's like we get right back up, and that's why we have to do recovery.
This reminds me again of what Roger was saying at the Thursday night meeting, that, when he goes into an amends with all these expectations of, the gratitude the other person's going to have, and ticking off a bunch of boxes of expectations.
How much they're going to appreciate him. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Then it prevents him from going out in spirit to that person. And I definitely see some of that reflected in what you guys are talking about here.
Oh, the hardest, the that's interesting, because you predicted that there'll be a crossover here, Alan, before we started recording today about this. But it's interesting about that, because I think I have two examples come to mind. I'm sure there's more, but of all the amends that I've made in my life, formal kinds of amends, it's like the couple that come to my mind that I they're still just kind of lodged in there a little bit is because of that, really, because not so much I wanted to be appreciated, but it's like they're heartfelt amends. And the response was basically just an acknowledgement. Thank you for that. That is the truth. Yes, that was very difficult for me. I'm doing well in my life. Thank you for reaching out. In other words, thanks for saying that. Not I think she might have said something about, hope you're doing well too, but I don't think she even said that. But it's there was nothing in it for me other than what I had learned from my first sponsor, which was the amend had been delivered, and I had delivered it appropriately. And so it's just, I wanted to go, well, I need a little bit more, but you don't get more. That's not up to me.
Yeah.
You can identify with that, Alan. I can tell by looking at your face. Oh yeah. Oh, definitely. Look, I just was reflecting on, this is such an important topic, which is why I dedicated a whole chapter in the book on this. And I'm so glad that we've, taken a couple shows to really unpack it. And so please, keep in mind that this is a practice, and you're going to get better and better at it as you continue to have more and more experience. But that's the big difference about being in recovery. Is being in recovery means learning from your experience and discovering new possibilities. And this is one of them. Is, we learn all the time that, that selfishness, self-will run riot, self-centeredness, that's the root of our problem. Well, now we're getting down to causes to those problems, right? We're learning how not to make things about us, and now to be in relationship with other people from a much more mature and a more differentiated posture. So we look forward to talking to you guys next week. And great show, Tom. Great show, Patrick.
Right back at you. And next week we'll be getting into chapter 7, realizing that nobody's coming. Of your book.
God. Yeah. Well, that fits with not taking it personal.
Well, it's perfect.
I keep waiting for that person to say the right things to me, so I'm healed. If my partner would just do everything I needed. I was going to say that was underneath part of that thing. Please treat me the way I want you to treat me, or demand that you treat me, so I don't have to be upset anymore. Well, my God, good luck with that. All right, we'll see you guys next week.
Peace out, guys.
Right. Take care, everyone.
Tend your life, tend your myth. Cultivate your narrative with whomever you're with. Then with glass in hand and children on one knee, bring some stories, bring your stories back to me. It ain't a crime to be a human. Never be ashamed to be yourself. Rest assured that whatever you're doing will entertain me like nobody else. So here's to us, my old friends, until it's time to drink the wine and break the bread again. With glass in hand and children on one knee, bring some stories, bring your stories back to me.